The valley is the basin of the charcoal, and the violet tinted in the midnight mist. A place where the shadows and the weary build, and the stationary spirits all exist. But I'm casting a silver spell with the flicker of my high beam and my structural light, cutting a jagged hole through the belly of the never-ending in the Saturday night. The engine is a baritone choir, deep in a gravel bell, and a structural sound washing away the weight of the city and the stationary in the hollowed out ground. I got the wind in my lungs and the stardust in my tired out and my wandering eyes, beneath the heavy duty lid of the indigo and the mountain and the permanent sky. Choices that I had to make in a high-speed version of a dream where the spirit is finally and truly awake. There's a quiet in the movement, a peace that only the long-distance travelers know. In the places where the lonely and the silver line and the permanent rivers grow. A temple of the rubber and the gear and the silver spar, leaving every bit of the world in the long distance and the silver line and the indigo dark. Deep, dry, desert bone. In a world made of noise, I am finally and perfectly alone. Deep, dry, desert bone, the king of the stillness on a silver line and a structural throne. The white lines are the stitches sewing up the fabric of the dark red and the velvet sky, reflecting the reason why the stationary and the weary build and the hollowed souls die. But I'm still moving, I'm still breathing in the heat and the high octane and the permanent flame, answering the syllables of a long forgotten and a structural and a permanent name. Charcoal and the gold underneath the judgment of the firmament and the gasoline colored sun that is brave and bold. the jagged razor of the orange and the gold cutting through the morning mist. And I'm the only gambler who's named the stationery in the hollow map maker's mist. I'm hauling a load of the memories and a cargo of the cold-hearted and the silver steel. I'm finding the only kind of the mercy that a simple-handed and a structural man can feel. The dashboard is a flickering altar, a shrine to the miles and the years and the gear, drowning out the echo of the old-fashioned and the industrial and the human-built fear. I'm a pilot of the gravity, a scholar of the grease and the octane and the lead, keeping the spirit of the highway alive in every single word that I've said. I've seen the people trapped inside of their stationary belts and their hollowed out dreams, wasting their lives away in the middle of the city built and the industrial built schemes. But I'm out here on the perimeter, I'm out here where the air is thin and wide, with a sense of the wonder and the peace living deep on the dark red and the indigo inside. The steering wheel is a compass pointing to the heart of the great and a long distance unknown, finding my own version of the kingdom while I'm driving through the desert all alone. It's a high-speed version of a baptism, a washing of the weary in the stationary soul, place where a simple-hearted man can feel perfectly and finally in the control. Rise, roll, rusted rail, writing my name on the belly of the lonesome and the silver trail. Rise, roll, rusted rail, a high-octane victory that'll never ever grow thin or frail. The stars are my only audience, they don't ever ask for a reason why. As I lean into the darkness beneath the lid of a mountaintop and a violet and a permanent sky, I see the reflections of the ancestors in the chrome of the flickering and the silver line light. A beautiful built version of a structural and a spiritual and a mechanical built side. I'll ride until the light breaks and the indigo turns into the charcoal and the gold. Underneath the judgment of the permanent and the gasoline-colored sun that is brave and bold, gears are shifting perfectly, the machine and the man are finally and perfectly as one, fulfilling the simple demands of a structural and a permanent built and a high-octane game. You don't need a steeple, you don't need a priest to find the final ride and the spiritual way. You just need the road and the engine and the glory of the indigo-colored Saturday day. It's a bond that is eternal, it's a bond that is written in the grease and the soul, in the only place where a simple man can feel perfectly and finally whole. Rise, roar, rusted rail, writing my name on the belly of the lonesome and the silver trail. Rise, roar, rusted rail, a high-octane victory that'll never ever grow thin or frail. horizon is a jagged blade cutting through the belly of the copper tinted day. And I'm the only one who's finding 1,000 reasons to just keep rolling away. The air is thick with the scent of the sulfur and the high octane and the holy fire, feeding the engine and feeding the ghost of a structural and a permanent desire. See the shadows of the mesa standing like giants in a holy and a gasoline haze, lost in the middle of the ruins of the old-fashioned and the Saturday night days. My hands are joined in a prayer to the throttle and the spirit of the long-distance ride, with a sense of the wonder and the clarity living deep on the dark red and the indigo inside. I've seen the empires of the concrete flicker and then finally fade into the gray, while I was chasing the remains of the indigo and the violet colored and the structural day. The world is a tangle of the wires and the rules that were never meant for a drifter like me, in a high octane race to the edge of the dark and the indigo colored and the permanent sea. The pistons are the hammers of justice, beating out a four-stroke and a gasoline prayer in the middle of the heavy duty and the chilly and the mountaintop and the holy air. I'm a navigator of the stillness, a scholar of the grease and the grit and the industrial grind, borrowing a little bit of the mercy from the banking of a borrowed and a weary time. Shift, shine, sulfur sky, watching the ghosts of the weary built and the stationary world go by. Shift, shine, sulfur sky, the king of the distance, and I don't even have to try. The white lines are the stitches sewing up the fabric of the dark red and the velvet night, while I'm chasing the remains of a singular and a spiritual and a silver line spark. I see the reflections of the ancestors in the chrome of the flickering and the structural light, standing like a vision in the middle of the never-ending and the Saturday night high. But I'm not done with the motion, I'm not done with the friction and the structural speed, providing the dark heart is salvation that a wandering spirit will desperately need. I'll ride until the light breaks and the indigo turns into the charcoal and the gold.